for joining this industry engagement session, a key part of the State of Innovation Challenge. My name is Jenny Six, and I'm on the team leading the challenge. Today, my colleague Julia and I are joined by three members of University of Washington's social robotics team, whose work centers on human-centered design. I'll have them introduce themselves in a moment. During today's conversation, we'll learn more about our guests, their respective paths to their current roles, and how their work intersects with the State of Innovation Challenge. We have some dedicated Q&A time built in, but feel free to submit questions via chat throughout the conversation. We'll answer what we can in the moment and circle back to other questions during those Q&A portions. With those details out of the way, I'll pass things over to the UW team to get us started.
Great. Okay, I'm going to start sharing the screen. There we go. Patricia, take it away.
All right, great. Hi, everybody. We're really excited to be here today. The three of us are graduate students at the University of Washington, and we're just really thrilled to be here to host this workshop introducing human-centered design. But first, we wanted to share a little bit about us. I'm Patria. I'm currently studying human-computer interaction through the University of Washington's Human-Centered Design and Engineering program. And in undergrad, I actually majored in mechanical engineering with dual minors in design and German. How about you, Hansen?
Hi, so in my undergrad, I studied psychology and sociology, and now I'm in the master's program for human-centered design and engineering. Yeah, so Simran?
Hi, everyone. I'm Simran, and I'm currently studying data science. And in my undergrad at UW, I studied informatics with a focus in statistics. Let's transition to talking about a day in all of our lives. Patria, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So actually before becoming a graduate student, I actually found the human-computer interaction field in design. While I was working at BMW on their engineering team, I was working on their iDrive and infotainment system. So think about things like the navigation system, music, your phone pairing, and even voice recognition, so talking to your car. I had the opportunity to blend engineering and design there. So after really finding that passion for that blend in this HCI human-computer interaction field, I decided to pursue my master's where I am now. So as a graduate student, I get to take really fun classes in the human-centered design and engineering programs such as visual communication, accessibility, and even interaction design. And on the side, I'm also working as a designer for a startup in civic tech. So a lot of cool things there. And then I'm also a community relations officer right now for the Graduate Student Association. So you'll also find me working on career development or other outreach projects within our HCDE department. And then just a couple more things on the side. I also am working on some fun projects related to voice recognition and language learning, an international chatbot for passport renewal, and then also looking into wearables for mental health. How about you, Hansen?
That was a lot. So I'm also a current student in the master's program, and right now I'm working full-time at Facebook as a research assistant. Basically, that role relates a lot more to what I was doing in my undergrad, carrying out research there. And but since now I'm transitioning into the UX user experience field, I'm also working part-time in other startups as well. But at my full-time job at Facebook, I help assist researchers and scientists to conduct their projects and research. And at my part-time job, I work as a product designer and also as a design manager for two different startups. And basically what I do is I help drive the design directions for my team and also facilitate communications between software developers and also our marketing and business team. Timur?
In my graduate program, I focus a lot in applying data science principles to research and design and understanding the practical projects that I could uptake with those skills. And I work as a business intelligence analyst at Accolade, which is a health tech company. So a lot of my work focuses on understanding user behavior data to help create engaging healthcare marketing that gets people to take action around their health. And this involves like conducting focused user research groups, analyzing current marketing campaigns, and overall user actions. Outside of work in grad school, I'm involved with research projects in virtual reality, and also volunteer with some women in tech groups around the country, such as anitaB.org. Priya, do you want to kick us off with the agenda?
Yeah, so here's just a quick agenda of some of the things that we'd love to share with you and talk about today. We're going to first start off with discussing what is human-centered design. Then we're going to take you through some of the projects, one of them that brought us together, which is Project EMAR, so sharing a little bit about that. And then being able to show how we can apply human-centered design to different projects. We'll use Project EMAR as an example, and then also we can discuss how it can apply to the projects that you'll be doing. And then at the end, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A, so you can ask us anything.
And if I can just jump in here to add too, if anyone's watching who's doing the Responding to COVID-19 challenge case, Project EMAR is a great example of one way to support mental health for teenagers. So I'll let the project team talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so we just want to kick off next here with just a quick video from our program to get a better idea of what it's like in human-centered design and engineering.
How do we design for people? How can innovative systems and technologies respond to the evolving needs of communities, groups, and individuals? At HCDE, we start with people. Our approach puts those who use and are affected by these systems and technologies first. We thrive at the critical junction of research, education, and community, where design and engineering work for people, delivering vital opportunities for sustainable, accessible, and prosperous futures. Empathy is integral to our approach. Equity is fundamental to our mission. Human-centered design and engineering. We build possibility.
Cool. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the concept of human-centered design is. So basically, in this discipline, we ask the question of how do we design for people and how we can come up with innovation that suits the needs of both community and individuals. And yeah, we are in the intersection between research, education, and design. And what we really value are empathy, equity, and accessibility. Those are kind of like our foundational pillars. And here is a quick visual representations of a list of steps that relates to the design process. And here the key is really on the bottom here is to understand, explore, and materialize your ideas. And what's even more important is that this is not a linear process. So you can see all these arrows jumping back and forth, right? As a designer, we move back and forth between these steps to evaluate our ideas, and the ability to empathize with our target users is probably one of the most important key components in what we're doing. And this image comes from the Nielsen Norman Group, and they're one of the most famous design consulting firm. So they have a lot of great design and research resources on their website. So feel free to take a look at it if you guys are interested. So now we have another quick video just to break down the design process once again. And this video has a bit more of a simpler terminology. So this might really kind of hone down on what human-centered design is.
Human-centered design is a creative approach to problem solving, one that starts with people and ends with innovative solutions tailored to meet their needs. When you understand the people you're trying to reach and then design from their perspective, not only will you arrive at unexpected answers, but you'll come up with ideas that they'll embrace. Human-centered design is both how you think and what you do with it. It's a process that consists of 3 phases: inspiration, ideation, and implementation. The inspiration phase is about learning on the fly, opening yourself up to creative possibilities, and trusting that as long as you remain grounded in the desires of the people you're designing for, your ideas will evolve into the right solution. In the ideation phase, you come up with lots of ideas. Some too crazy to work, some too crazy not to try, and you'll refine them, tossing out the bad and improving the good. Making things helps you learn, grow, and test your ideas. Building a simple prototype gets your idea tangible and gives you something to put right back into the hands of the folks you're designing for. Without their input, you won't know if your solution is on target or how to evolve your idea. Keep iterating, testing, and integrating feedback until you've got everything just right. During the implementation phase, you'll build partnerships, shore up your business model, and get your idea out into the world, which was always the goal in the first place. Anyone can practice human-centered design, and everyone benefits because it gets us all to solutions that are adopted and embraced. Human-centered design is a
Now, we have a question for you guys. So feel free to share your answers in the chat, or think about it wherever you're watching this video. So our question is, in what areas do you think that this design process could be applied to things or technology that you interact with every day? So we'll take maybe like a minute or 2 minutes to think and put ideas in the chat. And this could be anything. It could be related to your projects. It could be things that you interacted with this morning, things like that. Julia wrote, to the technology I use for meetings, sometimes I think it was not designed with people in mind. Coffee maker. Yep.
A critical design failure in my day. Wrangling with my coffee maker early in the morning.
There's a lot of home tech that isn't designed very well.
I see. We have one from Nancy Derringer about homes so grandparents can keep living in homes safely. Yeah, I think that's a great one. I think a lot of home design is really focused on people, isn't necessarily focused on homes that grow with you. Brenda says design of her home office. I feel like that's a human-centered design challenge, Brenda, that you can tackle. I think sometimes about the design of our school buildings too, and whether those are designed, with the needs of teachers and students in mind. And one of the challenges in State of Innovation Challenge is asking young people to look at how they might redesign their schools for the future. So thinking about what are some of the needs and services that we will want to have a more healthy, resilient, sustainable future for our schools and our industries. And so I think school buildings could be another good example of something that we used to interact with every day that could use some design changes.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's actually, related to that, there's actually a subfield called, or like a methodology we call speculative design, where we reimagine how the future could look like, and it really pushes the current boundaries of what how things are today. And if you guys are interested, feel free to ask more about it later.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, so let's move forward to talk about Project EMAR. So how that relates to the design process.
Yeah, so Project EMAR, also known as Ecological Momentary Assessment Robot, is a project that brought all three of us together. But it's also an NSF-funded project with the mission to design and develop a social robot for teens and with teens. The purpose is to measure and reduce stress among teens. And this is an interdisciplinary, community-based open source project with a strong commitment to ethical design. We're excited to show you how we use human-centered design in a real-life project. And a really cool aspect of this is collaborating with teenagers to co-design a solution together. And the picture that you see here is actually one of the versions of the social robot. So the problem space for this project is that teens experience more chronic stress than any other age group. So if you see the picture on the side, it's basically a representation of all of the stress that a teen goes through and the pressure that's building or just like waiting to explode. The adolescent brain is extremely vulnerable to the negative impact of stress. And if you look at stress overall, stress is highly correlated with depression and suicidal ideation. Moreover, 4 in 5 teens currently do not use the school provided mental health resources just because they're mostly workbook based and not engaging enough. So with this problem space, EMAR tries to really hone in on the stress and try to solve this problem. But this is a wicked problem with no simple solution. So even though stress is a universal problem, it does not have a one size fits all solution. It has to be personalized. And especially for the vulnerable population of teenagers, this becomes even more challenging. So the design question that we have for this project is, how might we design a social robot to improve mental health for teenagers? So you might ask, why a social robot for teens? So let's start with a known problem, right? So using tech is always a better way to understand the problem and form an intervention, given the possibilities. There are 3 things that we wanted to focus on with this, and that's why we chose the social robot. So first and foremost was data. So using a technology like a social robot helps us improve what we know and helps us understand the teen stress better. With this technology, collection of data is not burdensome, and we hope that it's also not boring for the teens to interact with, which provides an interesting and innovative solution. And overall, social robots are often known to enhance and increase human-to-human social interaction. So thinking about talking about stress with teens and schools is a unique way for the social robot to intervene. This has not been studied within robotics before, so it's definitely an underexplored area, and teenagers overall are an underexplored population. And like if you look at the picture on the side, this is just a way to show how novel the technology is. And here we're actually showing the social robot on a screen. So utilizing another form of leveraging the technology to address a wicked problem. And now Patria is gonna walk us through the design process for Project EMAR.
Yeah, so now that you've gotten a chance to learn a little bit more in depth about Project EMAR, we thought it would be really helpful to kind of break down this design process that you see here using Project EMAR as an example. And while we're going to be honing in each of these phases, just keep in mind that these steps don't need to necessarily happen in that order. Sometimes you find yourself iterating and coming back to earlier processes. So while we're going step by step, just know that you don't have to follow it in an exact order. So first here, we want to talk about empathy. So in order to empathize with our target user here, which is the adolescent population, we actually use this approach called participatory design. Now, this is something where we would actually go into the high school and listen to the different needs of students and teens and actually come up with solutions together where they were actually very involved in the process of discussing their problems related to mental health. And then next, from all of these discussions, we were able to further define our research area, thinking about things, what problem are we trying to solve for? How does it affect all of these different stakeholders? And here's actually a picture of us, back when we were live in the public high schools, able to discuss with teens and also gather anonymous data on stress and mood that were very helpful in order to, help reflect this data back to the community as we were defining our space. So then for the ideation phase, there are actually many different tools that can be used during ideation. And just know when you're brainstorming and coming up with ideas, there are no ideas that are too crazy. So for EMAR's ideation phase, one of the approaches we used was having a brainstorm about stressors and calmers. So on the left side here, we asked what makes you feel calm, and on the right side, what stresses you out. And so you use some examples that students are writing down, whether, some stressors were school and getting up early. It looks like some of the calls here were music, food, and friends. So it just gives folks an idea of what everybody, everyone's coming together, writing down the ideas, and getting an idea of where everybody's at. Next slide. And then some additional tools that you can use are Post-it notes for putting these ideas together, and then you can move them around based on, if some people have similar ideas, posting those together. And then some other great ways to work on ideation to bring those ideas really, to paper are using sketches or even storyboarding. So here's just some examples of what teens put together of their interactions with a social robot, some ideas that they had. So here's one where it's they're really happy because they're able to tell jokes with a social robot. And then, continuing the discussion about sketching, you can, sketch these different versions. So here there was a version 1 that a student created, and then a version 2. So you can kind of see this ideation process where they're kind of working on their idea a little bit further with it. And then in the next slide, actually, we wanted to share an example of what a storyboard would look like. Here you can really see different interactions when you're ideating and be able to share those with other folks in your group of how you would be for here, it was how a teen was interacting with the robot. So now after putting all of those sketches together, Simran's gonna talk a little bit more about prototyping those.
Yeah, so the next step is to break down the problem that we just ideated over and to start building those solutions. Now, the first step of prototyping is definitely to just use everything that you can find around you. This could be any scrap materials. So like you see in this picture, we're just using stuff that we found around the house. This could be cardboards, Post-its, craft materials, and the goal is just to build a low fidelity prototype, or also known as like a lo-fi idea, just to get a mock-up of like putting the stuff that we have on paper to more of a 3D solution. And this was our approach for EMAR, given that it's a robot, but this could look differently depending on what you're building. And we can discuss more of that for a later in the presentation. And the next step is kind of mocking up our low fidelity prototype to play out these interactions with high schoolers. So you can see this is not a very fancy solution, but just enough to get the user to understand the design that we have. And in this environment where we're all working from home, the goal is just to pull these materials from the house and be as simple as possible. So the pictures show like cardboard boxes with pencil drawings and Post-its. It can be as scrappy, but just getting the word across is important to the user. And this is really helpful for testing. So the next step, at least in this process, was to test out the prototypes that we built with teenagers. As you can see in the pictures, there are two different versions of EMAR. So these are just like two different reflections of when we were in the design process. And this really helped us get feedback about what we were building and how teams were comfortable with this or not comfortable with this, and to keep reiterating over our design given the feedback. The next step was to take these ideas and solutions that we've built and to like really make it happen. So based on our findings, we were able to implement some of the features that teams prefer and iterate on this design for our robot. And so over the past, I think 2 to 3 years, there's been like about 5 versions of EMAR. You can see how we started off with a black box, and so we got some feedback that the eyes are really creepy. So you can see how the facial expressions of EMAR have evolved and how the body has changed from being a black box to like something which teens now call huggable. So it's still iterating. This is just one of the current versions that we have. So as Hansen had mentioned earlier, this is not a linear process. It's just something that we continue to iterate and design as we deploy in the wild. But we just wanted to walk you through a few steps that have been conducted with EMAR. And now, Hansen, do you want to start the design charette?
Can I cut in and just ask a question really quick before we start the charette, which is, it's awesome to see how you moved through that project and use the human-centered design principles. I think a lot of people, when they hear about like engineering or design or creating robots, they think like, gosh, like I can't do that. Like, I don't know how to program. I don't know how to, how to code. I don't know how to make the machine do what I want. But would you say that like those kind of programming skills, are those the most important things for when you're designing a project? It seems like maybe being willing to be creative and empathize is actually kind of more important to design.
Yeah, so the great thing about design and engineering is that there are always multiple teams working on like interdisciplinary teams. And so one of the great things about EMAR as well, we kind of split into different teams. So there was a mechatronics team. So that's someone who's working on both like the mechanical and electrical side of the robot. And they're working more on the physical embodiment. Then there's another team that maybe works more with the like visual user experience aspect of it. So it's just a bunch of different teams coming together. So you don't need to necessarily be only the expert in coding, because you will be working with other people who may be programmers. But yeah, I would say even in industry too, you're working on a pretty interdisciplinary team, you're collaborating with multiple people. And so it's always nice to like have the basic background, I would say, of coding, but you don't need to be a programmer to get into this field.
Awesome, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we can go on now, sorry.
But yeah, I think just to add on that, like when I joined Project EMAR, I was a psychology student, didn't have any coding experience. And a lot of the skills, or I guess traits that I have, was just being curious and being imaginative to see, oh, how can we, like make new things and imagine new interactions. I think that's what's really important, is to have that sense of imagination.
Awesome.
Yeah, with that said, let's move on to a activity. So what we'll be doing is to do a virtual design charette. And for those who are not familiar with what a design charette is, I wasn't familiar with this until recently when I joined this program. A user-centered design charette is a fast-paced design activity where anyone could do. So people can come together and identify a problem and just really rapidly brainstorm solutions. So kids can do this, anyone can do this. And for our purpose, we'll be doing this on a tool called Mural Board. It's a great collaborative online visual platform. So, and I will open this up. Yeah. Oh, it's right here. So does everyone here have the link? So for those who are watching this online, you guys could put in ideas through the chat later on. But I think us 5 here would be logging on to Miro. So moment to set up.
Great, I'm joining now. So yeah, if you want to follow along and contribute a sticky note to our Miro board, just put your idea in the chat and we'll add it to the board for you. And we'll be happy to also put a link to Miro on the website later. So if you are a teacher and you're watching and you want to do this with your students, you'll have access to that.
So for today's activity, we have our four steps. So we'll walk through each of the steps, but for step 1, we'll be brainstorming an area of interest that we want to center our problem space around. So is everyone logged on, Hero? I think this is people.
Yeah, I'm there.
I'm there.
I'm on.
So
Yeah.
we'll take 1 minute to just kind of use these post-it and list out areas of interest that we want to focus on. So I'm gonna start the timer now. And just remember to generate as many ideas as you could, and later on we'll be voting on it.
I see some stuff coming in the chat too, so I'll add that in.
Yeah, let's add those in, and then we'll begin voting after I put those in. So the way that we usually do these is that everyone will get a number of votes, and then we just put the stickers. So we just grab, like, you know, oh, this is my packet of vote, and then I just vote on ideas that I like. Yeah, so I guess everyone could have maybe 2 votes to make this quicker. So everyone vote twice. And in the chat, if you want to vote for a category, you could just say +1 to a thing, and we'll do our best to vote. Teams can safely. Right. Has everyone voted?
I voted.
Okay, it seems
Yeah.
like there's a divide. So help teens safely connect outdoors and creating mindful space and crowded home. So for those who voted on other things, let's just put your vote in one of these 2 categories. All right, I think we picked, we have consensus here. Let's just go with this one. So creating mindful spaces in crowded homes. So so I'm just gonna take this post-it and then move it to the next step. So the next step is to brainstorm a how might we question. So a how might we question is a very common format of a question we ask when we're designing solutions. So it really allows us to imagine new solutions for that space. And some of the example of what a how might we question could be: how might we help teachers build online learning environments, blah, 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 blah. So now we're gonna take 2 minutes to think of how might we questions. And so feel free to put it in the chat if you have any ideas.
And these are how might we questions specifically related to our idea, just for folks following on the chat, which is how could we create mindful spaces in crowded homes? So we know a lot of teens are working, doing school from home, kids and parents, family, pets, younger siblings. It can be noisy and stressful. So how might we help support that? So I would say, how might we?
Missy, I see your addition. How might we help parents understand the need for those spaces? I can add that one in.
Someone put their sticky note on top of mine.
I see your addition. I'll add that one in.
Sure.
Like Brenda, I see you saying, how might we create space away from technology and screens and the noise? I'll put that.
So for the purpose of time, we're doing these quickly, but when you guys do this, of course, you can take a little bit more time to really get more depth in your ideas. So in this step, since now we have a lot of different post-it, what we could do is we could do a thing called affinity diagramming. But that's just a fancy word for putting ideas that are similar to each other together. So for example, I see that how might we create mindful spaces? How might we create emotional spaces? So these are related. They're not entirely the same, but we could put those closer together just to group them. So everyone could collaboratively group things together. Let's see, how might we reduce noise in the household? Each teen's meditation techniques. That one, I've seen something similar. Mindful routine. How might we take better breaks between online meetings? Okay, so these are also routine based. So as you can see, there's like some kind of themes that are that are emerging. So it's always good practice to kind of acknowledge those themes, and then you can really see, oh, we could focus on routine, we can focus on creating spaces, and you can see which directions that are emerging. So.
Yeah, I see some themes here, like how could we create space? Also, how could we help the family members communicate with each other better, so that people understand the need for space and when it's needed? I see definitely how can we make sure there's quality internet connection for everyone. I know that's a big concern, especially in our rural communities, but not just in urban communities too. People have challenges connecting to the internet as well.
Yeah. So the next step would be to another round of voting. So feel free to grab. Let's do three. Let's do three little stickers, and then vote on a question or a space that I think question. Vote on a question that you found interesting.
And if you want to put a +1 in the chat, if you're watching, if you have a vote, we're happy to add your vote to the list. Just type +1 and then your vote.
These are the same. Okay. It seems like everyone's voted. It seems like there is a consensus here on how might we help families create mindful space within the home. So I'm gonna take this and run with it. Now we move on to the next phase. Next step is to ideate a solution. So for this step, you have to let your imagination go wild. You can come up with the wackiest idea ever, because that pushes the boundary of what you could design for, right? Don't think about in terms of physicality or feasibility. Just be wacky and have fun with it. And we will give 3 minutes for this one.
I like the idea of your phone buzzing when you're invading someone's space. We can use Bluetooth trackers to create geographic boundaries within the home.
Brenda, I see your addition about a window bench. I'll add that one in. Carolyn, I like your idea about a space defined by an item, so families don't have to designate an entire room. I'll add that in.
feel like you can see which sticky notes are mine because I'm having some user error issues. I keep creating circles around mine unintentionally.
All right. Okay. So now we will do, okay, this takes some time to organize these post-its. I think I see some similarities between some of these, but I'll read them out. So if you are mindful space within home, let's see. If you guys see anything similar, please put it to nearby that one. Let's see. Window bench in a quiet room. That's kind of similar to having a space. Let's see. Window bench. Noise canceling headphones for everyone. Noise making time at the end of the day when people can just be loud. That's really cool. How might you help? Oh, that's a question. Your phone buzzes whenever you're invading someone's space. Starting each day with a mindful meeting. Interesting. Mindful cat. Whenever a cat is in your room, you have to be mindful.
Oh.
Red light, green light signal system. That's like a kind of notification system. Reminder. Okay. Cool. Now I think we could vote on one of these, and everyone gets 3 votes this time.
There we go. I was like, we're gonna run out of stickers. And again, if you want to vote, go ahead and put a +1 in the chat. We'll be happy to add your vote to the charette.
Well, all right, let's wrap up voting. It seems like the mindful cat, it's a very popular choice to design for. And even having this idea, you can go crazy with it. I was thinking actually maybe we could do a mindful cat that is a robotic cat that, you know, comes in randomly and then leaves randomly. Or maybe it's like a vest that your cat actually wears, some kind of collar or sign. That'd be cool too.
Something you can text to your parents or your siblings to let them know if you have a phone, if they have phones, to say you could send them a mindful cat emoji or some other kind of image.
Right. So our next step is to actually sketch out a storyboard or some kind of sketch of your solution in mind. So what we did in EMAR is to have these kind of maybe like a comic strip to kind of sketch out what that interaction would look like. For example, what would a mindful cat interaction look like? Would it come in and then do you pause and just pet it, or do you like do other things with it? And you can also do like some kind of diagram that describe the feature of the thing that you're designing. But for the purpose of our time here today, I think we won't have time to do that. So that's a bit unfortunate, but we will move on with the presentation.
You can sketch in your own time. I've started it on my sticky note here of the mindful cat.
Yeah, Yeah, so let me just finish up the presentation and we'll have some time for questions. So where do you go from here? Great question. Where do you go after you have some kind of solution or diagram? If your solution is some kind of mobile or desktop app, normally for us designer, we'll go into software programs like Figma, which lets you do a more higher fidelity prototype of what it could look like on your phone. And then you can test it with people. Or you can use other forms of tools to make those kind of prototypes as well. But regardless, whatever you're designing for, it doesn't have to be an app, it could be some kind of service, whatever, right? You need to talk with the people that you're designing for. You need to evaluate your design and your design of your solution and the assumptions that you're making. We're assuming people have cats, right? So that could be a wrong assumptions in that case. So remember to talk with the people that you're designing for. And if you, there's a pro tip here. There are like software that has free and discounted education accounts. So make sure you could take advantage of those if you're using programs like Figma or something else. So just another note for a design charrette lesson plan and toolkit, we have UW actually created a toolkit worksheet for teachers to carry out these workshops. So the link we'll share with you later. I'm sure Julia will have this slide deck. So
yeah, absolutely. We'll have it posted on our website and also in our lesson bank on OER Commons.
Awesome. Yeah, so now we will have some time for you guys to ask us questions.
So maybe as folks are submitting their questions via chat, we have a couple that I'd love to hear about. One is thinking all the way back to like middle school, high school, before you really got on this path. What are some classes or out of classroom activities that really sparked the interest to get involved in this sort of thing?
Yeah, I could take this one first. So for me, I actually remember very clearly that I did this science competition hosted by Wazoo, Washington State University, called Imagine Tomorrow. What they did was that we had to design, well, we actually did, it wasn't really design, it was like a research project on how do we invent like new sustainable technology. But it was a really fun competition because we spent a year like coming up with like a solution to like a problem. And we ended up looking into biofuel, which is now looking back at it, it's completely unrelated to what I'm doing, but it was a really, the process, I've learned a lot from it.
Patria, Simran, what about you two?
Yeah, so I've always really gravitated towards like physical space, like making physical things. So I would say like even like when I was super young, like really getting into Legos was something that was exciting for me. That really helped with like imagination building and like putting together like different worlds, especially with like more physical pieces. I always really loved that. But then like in school with once I was in middle school and then early high school, they did a lot of more projects related to like illustration. So they would have like some Photoshop classes that were fun. And then also putting together like a school yearbook, they had the opportunity for us to use more of those digital tools. And that's when I started really looking into like design with like the visual communication side. That was really exciting for me to like play around and dabble with.
I had a question for Patria and Simran both. Jenny, if I can jump in, is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
So I think that a lot of people, when they think about engineering or design, like they don't think about it as a field where there are a lot of women that work. And I know, Patria, you also specifically mentioned that you worked in engineering in the auto industry, which is a big industry in Washington State. We have an auto training program called ITAC for students. And I was just curious about kind of what your experiences have been like as women working in engineering, and what would you say to other girls who are interested in engineering, or for any of you, to people of color, other people who may think that, gosh, this is interesting, but I don't know if I see any people like me in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did mechanical engineering for my undergrad. And similar to what you were saying, Julia, I often found myself being the only person of color or even the only woman in the room. Again, for me, this was like 5 years ago when I was an undergrad, and things are definitely getting better. But yeah, I would say like to young girls who are very interested in engineering and STEM to not be discouraged by that. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities for women in engineering. One of the great things, so my undergrad was at Ohio State, and we actually had a women in engineering program specifically dedicated to support women who were going into STEM. So to not feel intimidated if you are maybe the only woman in your program, because a lot of schools do have these programs as well to help support you through scholarships, through mentorship, through career advice. So I have found that really helpful for me when I was an undergrad, sometimes finding myself being the only person in the room, especially like in the machine shop for mechanical engineering. Um, Definitely once you go into industry, it really depends what team you're working on. So I know when I was working in the more engineering side of things, there were definitely less women, but now human computer action and user experience design, I've found that there are a lot more women in the field. So yeah, it really depends which team you've been joining, but there are definitely more women joining the field. And definitely don't be discouraged being the only person in the room.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I feel like a lot of like math and like engineering focused classes for me, especially computer science, is I would describe as like a lonely experience where I felt like if I like raise my hand, people would judge me because like as a woman of color, or like people would like the imposter syndrome, I think really kicks in then. And like finding your tribe is really important. Like I would encourage people to like join clubs such as like Girls Who Code or like Society of Women Engineers, which really shows you that you're not the only person in the world who likes like science and engineering, and it's completely normal. So yeah, don't give up and just like keep hustling through. It does get easier, but it's something that we all have to work towards.
Yeah, and something, when you start looking for careers, something that's really important to look into other than the job that you're doing, but understanding what is that company's culture? Do they support, people of color or women in the field? And it's really great because a lot of companies have these affinity groups, kind of what Simran was talking about, where they'll have like a women in tech group. And then, being able to find your tribe that way and supporting each other.
Awesome. Maybe our last question before we wrap up is from the audience. What if I'm not good at math or science, but I love design? How do you navigate that?
Or you think maybe you're not good at math or science.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not good at math and science. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like looking back, I thought I was going to do pre-med, right? But then I think there's just some things that you start finding out that, oh, this is not interesting, at least for me in my case. And I personally value like, oh, that freedom of being like exercise my imagination. That's what I really like. And another thing is that when you get into the design field, sometimes you have that feeling, what if I'm not good at art or being artsy? Like, can we do this? That's actually what I'm going through right now, right? Like, there's a lot of artists in this field. They're really good with their craft, but what can I bring to this field that is different and that's unique on my own? I think figuring out that it's more important than looking into what your weaknesses are. Oh, but understanding your weakness is also important too sometimes. But thinking about what your unique proposition is important as well.
Thank you for taking us through this and for answering questions. I know we're at time, so I think we should probably wrap up. As a reminder to everyone called in, our industry engagements will be uploaded to YouTube, so you can watch and rewatch these conversations even after the event date. And then also a reminder that our next industry engagement will take place this Thursday at 2 p.m. and focus on the role of Jason Ramos, a wildfire prevention expert and the author of Smoke Jumper. Until then, thank you so much for tuning in and take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.